The stars looked cold and empty in this part of space. Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of his ship, the Void Seeker, and watched the darkness through the main window. His blue skin had the usual patterns that showed he was from the warrior class of his people. His 4 arms moved as he checked different control panels around his command chair. The Void Seeker was the best ship the Zephyrian Empire had built for finding new worlds and new species to conquer. It was long and smooth, with silver metal that could bend light around it to hide from enemies. The ship had weapons that could destroy most things they found in space. Commander Veltar had used this ship to find 12 different worlds with people living on them. All 12 worlds now belonged to the Zephyrian Empire. "Commander," said Science Officer Crix from his station. His voice made a soft humming sound, like all Zephyrians when they talked. "I am getting strange readings from the edge of this star system." Veltar turned his large head toward Crix. His yellow eyes focused on the younger officer. "What kind of readings?" Crix looked at his screens and made small clicking sounds with his mouth. This meant he was thinking hard about something. "There is a ship out there, Commander. It looks like it is not moving. Maybe it is broken or empty." "Show me," Veltar said. The main screen in front of them changed from showing stars to showing a picture of something floating in space. The object was big and looked like it was made of gray metal. It had a long shape with what looked like gun turrets on the top and sides. There were lights on it, so someone was probably inside. "How big is it?" Veltar asked. "About 1,000 meters long, Commander. Much smaller than our ship, but still big enough to hold many people." Veltar looked at the strange ship and smiled. His smile showed teeth that were sharp like a meat-eater's teeth. "It looks old and simple. What kind of technology does it have?" Crix worked at his controls for a few minutes. "The readings show they are using fusion reactors for power. Very basic. They also have chemical rockets for moving. Nothing we have not seen before from primitive species. Any weapons? Some gun turrets that shoot metal bullets. Maybe some missiles. Nothing that could hurt us." Veltar laughed, and the sound echoed around the bridge. The other officers on the bridge also made laughing sounds. They had seen many ships like this before from species that thought they were strong, but were really very weak. "How many life forms are on the ship?" Veltar asked. Crix did more scans. "About 3,000 beings. They seem to be the same species. 2 arms, 2 legs, small bodies. They look very weak." "Perfect," Veltar said. 3,000 new slaves for the Empire, and we get to study a new species too." While the Zephyrians talked about their easy victory, the humans on the other ship knew exactly what was happening. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair on the bridge of the USS Liberty. His brown hair was cut short like all military officers, and his green eyes looked calm, even though alien enemies were watching his ship. "Captain," said Chief Engineer Lisa Parker from her station, "the alien ship is scanning us. They are using basic energy sweeps right now." Jake nodded. "Good. Let them see what we want them to see. How are our stealth systems?" "Working perfectly. Sir, they think we are just one ship with simple technology." Communications Officer Ryan Davis looked up from his station. "Captain, I am picking up their radio signals. They are talking about capturing us and making us slaves." Jake's mouth made a small smile, but his eyes stayed cold. "Is that so? Well, they are about to learn something new today." On the Zephyrian ship, Commander Veltar was making plans. "Crix, I want you to do a full scan of their ship. Find out Everything about their weapons, their shields, how many people are in each section. We need to know the best way to board them. Yes, Commander, Crix said. He was excited because this would be easy. The alien ship looked so simple that his scans would go through it like light through glass. Back on the Liberty, Dr. Nathan Cole was watching his science station very carefully. He was the ship's head scientist, and he knew more about alien technology than almost any other human. Captain, they are about to make a big mistake. How big? Jake asked. They are getting ready to do a deep scan of our ship. When they do that, it will turn on our defensive systems automatically. Jake nodded. How long do we wait? Not long, sir. Maybe 2 more minutes. The bridge of the Liberty was quiet except for the soft humming of the ship's systems. Every person there knew they were about to see something that would change how aliens thought about humans forever. They had trained for this moment for years. First Officer Amy Sullivan checked her controls. All stations report ready, Captain. Very good, Jake said. Remember, everyone, we let them scan us first. We want them to think they know everything about us. On the Zephyrian ship, Crix was starting his deep scan. Beginning full analysis now, Commander. Energy beams shot out from the Void Seeker toward the human ship. These beams could go through most metals and tell the Zephyrians everything about what they were looking at. Crix expected to see a simple ship with basic weapons and scared people. Inside, instead, his screen started showing things that made no sense. Commander, Crix said, and his voice sounded worried. These readings are strange. What do you mean, strange? Their hull is not just metal. It is made of many different materials I do not recognize. And their power systems, they are much stronger than they should be. Veltar came over to look at Crix's screens. What he saw made his yellow eyes grow wide. The human ship was not what it looked like from the outside. On the Liberty, warning lights started flashing softly. Dr. Cole smiled. There it is, Captain. They just triggered our Phoenix protocols. Excellent, Jake said. Now we see what they are really made of. The Zephyrians had no idea that their simple scan had just woken up the most dangerous war machine humans had ever built. And they definitely did not know that the Liberty was not alone in this part of space. The game was about to begin, and the rules were about to change forever. Science Officer Crix stared at his scanning screens with growing confusion. The numbers and pictures did not match what his eyes could see when he looked at the human ship through the main window. Something was very wrong with his equipment, or something was very wrong with that ship. Commander Veltar, Crix said, his voice shaking a little. I need to run the deep scans again. These readings cannot be correct. Commander Veltar walked over to Crix's station. His forearms moved quickly as he checked the different screens and controls. What is the problem, Science Officer? Sir, the basic scans showed a simple ship with weak technology. But when I use the deep molecular scanners, I see something completely different. Crix pointed at one of his screens. Look at this reading of their hull. Veltar looked at the screen. The picture showed the human ship, but now it had many layers of different colors. Each color meant a different type of material. There were metals he recognized, but there were also materials that his computer could not identify at all. What are these unknown materials? Veltar asked. I do not know, Commander. Our database has information about every metal and compound we have ever found, but these materials are not in our records. Some of them seem to be stronger than anything we have ever seen. Veltar felt a small worry start in his mind, but he pushed it away. Maybe this species found some rare metals on their planet. Run. Deeper scans. I want to know everything about their weapons and defenses. Crix worked at his controls for several minutes. The deep scanners sent more powerful energy beams toward the human ship. These beams could look inside walls and see the smallest details of how something was built. On the human ship, Dr. Nathan Cole watched his instruments very carefully. Numbers and symbols moved across his screens as the alien scanners tried to look deeper into the Liberty. Captain Morrison, they are using much stronger scans now. They are trying to see our internal systems. Captain Jake Morrison nodded. Let them look, Doctor. How much can they actually see? Not very much, sir. Our Phoenix shielding is blocking most of their scans, but we are letting them see just enough to make them curious. Good. The more curious they get, the deeper they will scan, and the deeper they scan, the more systems will wake up automatically. Dr. Cole finished with a smile. Communications Officer Ryan Davis was listening to the alien radio signals. Captain, they sound confused. They keep talking about readings that do not make sense. Perfect, Jake said. Confusion leads to mistakes, and mistakes lead to opportunities. Back on the Zephyrian ship, Crix was getting more worried with every scan he completed. Commander, their power systems are much more advanced than we first thought. These fusion reactors are running at energy levels that should be impossible. Impossible. How? Veltar asked. Sir, according to our science, fusion reactors like these should explode if they try to produce this much energy. But somehow these reactors are stable and producing 10 times more power than they should be able to. Veltar looked at the energy readings on the screen. The numbers were indeed much higher than anything he had seen before. Maybe they have better control systems than we thought. What about their weapons? Crix ran scans on the gun turrets they could see on the outside of the human ship. The weapons look simple from the outside, Commander. Just metal projectile guns and basic missiles. But what? But I am detecting energy signatures that suggest there might be other weapons, hidden inside the ship. Weapons that our scans cannot see clearly. This made Veltar more interested instead of more worried. Hidden weapons meant this species was smarter than they looked. Smart species made better slaves because they could do more complex work. Can you scan deeper? I want to see these hidden weapons. I can try, Commander. But I will need to use our most powerful scanners. These scanners use a lot of energy and might damage our own systems if we use them too long. Do it, Veltar ordered. I want to know everything about this ship before we capture it. Crix began activating the Void Seeker's most powerful scanning systems. These scanners were usually only used for analyzing planets or very large space stations. Using them on a single ship was like using a hammer to crack a small nut. On the Liberty, warning alarms started beeping softly throughout the ship. Dr. Cole looked at his readings and his eyes grew wide. Captain, they just activated military-grade, deep space scanners. These are the kind of scanners used for analyzing planets. They are using planet scanners on us? Jake asked. Yes, sir. They really want to know what we are hiding. Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Well, they are about to find out. How many defense systems will this level of scanning activate? Dr. Cole checked his computer. All of them, sir. Phoenix Protocol Level 5 will be fully active in 30 seconds. First Officer Amy Sullivan looked up from her station. Captain, should I alert the rest of the fleet? Not yet, Amy. Let our friends finish their scans first. I want them to see everything they think they want to see. The powerful Zephyrian scanners cut through space like invisible knives. They pushed through, the outer layers of the Liberty's hull and began examining the ship's internal structure. What they found made Science Officer Crix's hands shake as he read the results. "Commander," Crix said, his voice now full of fear instead of excitement, "these readings, they cannot be correct." "What do you see?" "Sir, this ship is much larger inside than it appears outside. Our scans show internal spaces that should not fit within the hull dimensions we can observe." Veltar came to look at the scans himself. The pictures showed rooms and corridors inside the human ship that seemed to exist in impossible places. "Your equipment must be malfunctioning, Crix." "I have checked everything 3 times, Commander. The equipment is working correctly. This ship uses space in ways that our science says should be impossible." "Show me their weapons," Veltar demanded. Crix brought up the weapons scans on the main screen. What appeared made every Zephyrian on the bridge step backward in shock. The simple gun turrets they could see on the outside were just the smallest part of the human ship's armament. Hidden inside the hull were weapons that defied understanding. There were energy cannons that seemed to draw power directly from the ship's fusion reactors. There were missile systems that could hold hundreds of projectiles. Most frightening of all, there were weapons that the Zephyrian computers could not even classify. "What are those?" Veltar pointed at strange cylindrical objects deep inside the ship. "I do not know, Commander. Our computers cannot identify them. They seem to manipulate space and time in ways that our science says are impossible." For the first time since starting this mission, Commander Veltar began to feel real fear. This was not a primitive ship with weak weapons. This was something far beyond anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever encountered. On the Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison received a report that made him smile. "Captain," Dr. Cole said, "they have now scanned deep enough to activate our final defense protocol. Phoenix is fully awake." "Excellent. Now they know what they are really dealing with. Should we contact them, sir?" Jake thought for a moment. "Not yet. Let them finish their scans. I want them to see everything. When they understand what they have found, then we will talk." The Zephyrians had wanted to scan a simple enemy ship. Instead, they had awakened something that would change their understanding of war forever. The alarm sounds on the Zephyrian ship grew louder as Science Officer Crix's scans revealed more impossible things about the human vessel. Commander Veltar stood behind Crix's chair, watching the data flow across multiple screens. Each new piece of information made less sense than the last. "Commander," Crix said, his voice barely above a whisper, "I think we have made a terrible mistake." "What do you mean?" Veltar asked, though deep in his mind he was starting to understand what Crix meant. "Sir, this is not a simple cargo ship or even a basic warship. Our deep scans show that this vessel is designed for one purpose only: total destruction of enemies." Crix's hands moved across his controls, bringing up new images on the main screen. The pictures showed the inside of the human ship in amazing detail. What the Zephyrians saw made their blood run cold. The ship had dozens of levels inside its hull. Each level was packed with weapons, ammunition, and systems they could not understand. There were rooms full of soldiers wearing armor that seemed to be made from the same unknown materials as the ship's hull. There were factories inside the ship that could build new weapons and repair damage during battle. "Look at this," Crix said, pointing to one section of the scan. "This entire deck appears to be dedicated to something our computers call planetary bombardment systems." "Planetary bombardment?" Veltar repeated. "You mean weapons designed to attack planets?" "Yes. Commander, but not just to attack planets. These weapons appear designed to crack planets apart completely. The bridge of the Void Seeker became very quiet. Every Zephyrian officer stared at the scans in growing horror. They had thought they were looking at a weak ship from a primitive species. Instead, they had found a weapon of mass destruction that could destroy entire worlds. But the worst discovery was still to come. "Commander," Crix said, his voice now shaking with fear. "I am detecting something else. These scans show that this ship is not alone." "What do you mean, not alone?" Crix's fingers flew over his controls as he tried to make sense of what his instruments were telling him. "Sir, I am now detecting other ships, many other ships. They were hidden somehow, but our deep scans of this one ship have revealed them." The main screen changed to show a wider view of the space around them. Suddenly, the empty darkness was filled with dozens of ship signatures. The human vessels had been there all along, invisible to Zephyrian sensors until now. "How many ships?" Veltar asked. "I count 47 vessels, Commander, and they are all the same size or larger than the one we first detected." Veltar felt his legs become weak. 47 ships, like the one they had scanned, meant that the humans had enough firepower to destroy the entire Zephyrian fleet. Not just defeat it, completely destroy it. On the human ship Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison was receiving reports from all his officers. The mood on the bridge was calm and professional, very different from the panic that was starting to spread through the alien ship. "Captain," said Communications Officer Ryan Davis, "the alien ship is trying to scan our entire fleet now. They seem very upset about finding us." "I imagine they are," Jake said with a slight smile. "Dr. Cole, how much of our true capabilities have they seen?" Dr. Nathan Cole checked his instruments. "About 30%, sir. They know we have advanced weapons and defensive systems. They know we have a large fleet, but they still do not know the most important things about us. Such as, they do not know that every ship in our fleet can move faster than light without using the jump gates they depend on. They do not know that we have been watching their empire for over 50 years, and they definitely do not know that this entire encounter was planned by us." First Officer Amy Sullivan looked up from her station. "Captain, I am reading massive energy spikes from the alien ship. I think they are getting ready to either attack us or run away." "Let them try either one," Jake said. "We are ready for both possibilities." On the Zephyrian ship, Commander Veltar was trying to decide what to do. His military training told him to attack before the enemy could attack him, but his common sense told him that attacking 47 advanced warships with one reconnaissance vessel would be suicide. "Crix," he said, "can we escape? Can we reach the jump gate before they stop us?" Crix ran calculations on his computer. "I do not think so, Commander. Our scans show that several of their ships are positioned between us and the nearest jump gate, and their engines appear to be much faster than ours." "Then we fight," Veltar decided. "Prepare all weapons. Target the ship we scanned first. Maybe we can destroy it before the others can react." "Commander," said Weapons Officer Drack from his station, "I do not think our weapons will be effective against their hulls. The scans show armor that is much stronger than anything we have ever encountered. We have to try," Veltar said. "We cannot let them capture us alive. The information they could get from our ship and crew would be dangerous to the Empire." Just as Veltar was about to give the order to attack, something happened that made him freeze in terror. The human ship began to change. On the Liberty's bridge, Jake Morrison gave a simple command. "Amy, show them what we really are." "Yes, sir," Amy replied. She pressed several buttons on her control panel. All around the Liberty, sections of the hull began to move. What had looked like a simple warship suddenly revealed its true nature. Hidden weapon ports opened along the entire length of the ship. Massive gun turrets emerged from concealed positions. Energy collectors extended from the hull to gather power from nearby stars. Most frightening of all, the ship began to grow larger. What the Zephyrians had thought was a 1,000-meter vessel expanded to over 3 times that size as hidden sections unfolded like the petals of a deadly flower. "By the ancient gods," Crix whispered as he watched his scans. "Commander, this ship is not what we thought it was." "I can see that," Veltar replied, his voice hollow with shock. The other human ships in the fleet were also revealing their true forms. Each one was transforming from what looked like a simple warship into something that resembled a mobile space. Fortress. Weapons that could destroy moons emerged from hidden compartments. Defensive shields that could stop the most powerful attacks began to glow around each ship. "Commander," Crix said, reading his instruments with growing disbelief. I'm now detecting energy readings that are impossible." "How impossible?" "Sir, each of these ships is generating enough power to supply energy to an entire planet. Their weapons are charged with enough energy to destroy our ship with a single shot. And their shields—" "What about their shields?" "Their shields are stronger than the armor on our most powerful battleships." Commander Veltar realized that his empire had made a catastrophic mistake. They had not discovered a new species to conquer. They had found a species that was far more advanced than anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever imagined. A species that had been watching them, studying them, and preparing for this exact moment. And now that species was ready to show the Zephyrians exactly how powerful humans could be when they decided to stop hiding. Commander Veltar stood frozen on the bridge of his ship as he watched the human fleet transform before his eyes. Each ship that revealed its true form made him understand how badly he had misjudged the situation. These were not primitive vessels from a weak species. These were war machines built by a civilization that understood destruction in ways the Zephyrian Empire had never imagined. "Commander," Weapons Officer Drax said from his station, "should I target their weapons and fire?" Veltar looked at the weapons readings on his screens. The Void Seeker carried plasma cannons that could cut through most ship armor, missile systems that could track targets across vast distances, and energy shields that had protected them in dozens of battles. Against any normal enemy, these weapons would be more than enough. But the scans of the human ships showed defensive systems that made Zephyrian weapons look like children's toys. The humans had energy shields that could absorb the full power of a star. Their armor was made from materials that could survive the explosion of planets. Most terrifying of all, their weapons were designed to fight wars that the Zephyrians could not even understand. "Hold your fire," Veltar ordered. "If we attack them, they will destroy us in seconds." "Then what do we do, Commander?" asked Navigation. Officer Hext. Before Veltar could answer, the communication systems on the Void Seeker came to life. A voice spoke in perfect Zephyrian language, though the accent was strange and the tone was calm in a way that made it even more frightening. "Commander Veltar of the Zephyrian Empire vessel Void Seeker," the voice said. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel Liberty. I believe we need to talk." Every Zephyrian on the bridge turned to look at their commander. How did the humans know their language? How did they know Veltar's name and the name of their ship? The questions multiplied in Veltar's mind, but he knew he had to respond. "Human Captain," Veltar said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am Commander Veltar. We were conducting a routine patrol when we detected your vessel." "A routine patrol," Jake's voice replied, and there was something in his tone that suggested he found this amusing. "Commander, we both know that is not true. You were scanning our ship to determine how best to attack and capture us." Veltar felt his throat become dry. The human was right, of course, but admitting it would be admitting that the Zephyrian Empire had hostile intentions toward this new species. "We were simply gathering information about an unknown vessel in this sector," Veltar said. "I understand," Jake replied. "You wanted information. Well, Commander, you certainly got it. Your scans have told you quite a lot about our capabilities. The question now is what you plan to do with that information." On the Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison sat calmly in his command chair while his crew monitored the alien ship. Communications. Officer Ryan Davis was recording everything the aliens said. Dr. Nathan Cole was analyzing their ship's technology through the scanning data they had gathered. First Officer Amy Sullivan was coordinating with the other human ships in the fleet. "Captain," Amy said quietly, "Admiral Ross is requesting permission to decloak his task force." Jake thought for a moment. The Zephyrians had already discovered 47 human ships. Learning about the additional 300 vessels that Admiral Kevin Ross commanded might be too much shock for them to handle all at once. Not yet, Jake decided. Let's see how they react to what they already know. Dr. Cole looked up from his science station. "Captain, I have finished analyzing their ship's systems. They are approximately 50 to 70 years behind us in most technologies. Their weapons could not penetrate our shields, and our weapons could destroy their ship completely with a single shot." "What about their faster-than-light travel?" Jake asked. "They use jump gates, sir. Artificial structures that create temporary wormholes between star systems. It is effective but limited. They can only travel to systems where they have already built gates." "While we can travel anywhere instantly," Jake said, "that is a significant tactical advantage." Back on the Zephyrian ship, Commander Veltar was trying to understand his situation. The humans clearly had superior technology and superior numbers. They could destroy his ship whenever they wanted to, but they were talking instead of shooting. This suggested they wanted something more than just his destruction. "Human Captain Morrison," Veltar said. "What do you want from us?" "Want from you?" Jake's voice replied. "Commander, I think you misunderstand the situation. We do not want anything from you. We want to give something to you." "Give us something?" "Information, Commander. The same thing you wanted from us. We want to give you information that will help you make the right decision for your empire." Veltar looked around his bridge at his confused officers. "What kind of information?" "The truth about humanity, Commander. You see, your scan of our ship was not the first contact between our species. We have been watching the Zephyrian Empire for over 50 years. The words hit Veltar like a physical blow. "Watching us. How?" "We have been studying your expansion patterns, your military tactics, your treatment of conquered species. We know about the 12 worlds you have enslaved. We know about your plans to continue expanding into this sector of space." Science Officer Crix looked up from his instruments with wide, frightened eyes. "Commander, if they have been watching us for 50 years, they know everything about our military capabilities." "That is correct," Jake's voice confirmed, somehow, hearing Crix's words. "We know the location of every Zephyrian military base. We know the design of every ship in your fleet. We know your supply lines, your communication codes, and your strategic weaknesses." "How is that possible?" Veltar asked. "Because we are very good at staying hidden when we want to be, Commander. Your people never saw our surveillance ships, because we did not want you to see them. Just like you did not see our fleet until we chose to reveal ourselves." Lieutenant Commander Tony Martinez, the tactical officer on the Liberty, was analyzing the alien ship's weapons and defenses. He had been doing this for years, studying captured Zephyrian technology and developing countermeasures for every system they used. "Captain," Tony said, "I have completed the tactical assessment. Their ship poses no threat to us or to any vessel in our fleet." "What about the rest of their military?" Jake asked. "Based on our intelligence, sir, the entire Zephyrian Empire fleet would not be able to defeat the ships we have in this one task force." Jake nodded. This was what human intelligence had predicted, but it was good to have confirmation. "Commander Veltar," Jake said, his voice becoming more serious, "your empire faces a choice. You can continue your expansion and meet humanity as an enemy, or you can stop your conquests and meet us as neighbors." "And if we choose to be enemies?" Veltar asked. "Then your empire will cease to exist within 1 year," Jake replied, his voice calm and matter-of-fact. "Not because we want to destroy you, but because you will leave us no choice." The bridge of the Void Seeker became completely silent as every Zephyrian absorbed the implications of what the human captain had just said. The silence on the Zephyrian bridge stretched for long minutes after Captain Morrison's words. Commander Veltar stared at the communication panel, trying to process what he had just heard. The human had spoken about destroying the entire Zephyrian Empire with the same calm tone someone might use to discuss the weather. "Commander," Science Officer Crix whispered, "do you think they are telling the truth about watching us for 50 years? Veltar looked at his science officer. Crix was young but brilliant, one of the best scanners in the Zephyrian fleet. If anyone could detect lies in the humans' claims, it would be him. "What do your instruments tell you?" Veltar asked. Crix worked at his controls, analyzing everything they had learned about the human ships. "Commander, their technology is far more advanced than anything in our databases. Their ships show design features that suggest they have been built specifically to fight against our weapons and tactics." "What does that mean?" "It means they have studied our military very carefully for a very long time. No one could build ships this perfectly designed to defeat us without detailed knowledge of how we fight." The implications hit Veltar like a cold wave. If the humans had been watching the Zephyrian Empire for 50 years, they knew everything. They knew about the secret military bases, the hidden fleets, the experimental weapons programs. They probably knew things about the Empire that even high-ranking commanders like himself did not know. On the Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison was watching the readings from the alien ship. Their energy signatures showed confusion, fear, and growing desperation. It was exactly what human psychologists had predicted the Zephyrians would feel when confronted with the truth about their situation. "Captain," said Dr. Grace Murphy from her station. Dr. Murphy was the fleet's leading expert on alien psychology and behavior. She had spent years studying intercepted Zephyrian communications to understand how their minds worked. "What do you see, Doctor?" Jake asked. "Their stress levels are increasing rapidly, sir. The Zephyrians are a warrior culture, but they are also pragmatic. When faced with a clearly superior enemy, they will usually try to negotiate rather than fight a hopeless battle." "How long before they make their decision?" "Not long, Captain. Their commander is probably trying to figure out if we are bluffing about our capabilities." Jake nodded. "Then perhaps it is time to show them we are not bluffing. Amy, signal Admiral Ross. Tell him to decloak the main fleet. First Officer Amy Sullivan smiled as she sent the coded message. Message sent, Captain. Admiral Ross confirms he is ready to reveal the task force. Far from the immediate confrontation, Admiral Kevin Ross received the signal aboard his flagship, the massive carrier New York. The New York was 3 times larger than the Liberty and carried enough fighters and bombers to attack entire planets. Around the carrier, 300 additional human warships waited in perfect formation, invisible to Zephyrian sensors. All ships, Admiral Ross broadcast on the fleet channel. Operation Revelation is now active. Decloak on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark. Throughout the star system, space itself seemed to come alive as hundreds of human ships materialized from nothingness. Each vessel was larger and more heavily armed than anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever built. Battleships that could destroy moons, carriers filled with fighters that moved faster than light, support ships that could repair entire fleets during battle. On the Zephyrian ship, every alarm began screaming at once. Science Officer Crix's screens lit up with so many new contacts that his computers could not count them all. Commander, Crix said, his voice breaking with terror. There are hundreds of them. Hundreds of human ships throughout this entire star system. Commander Veltar looked at the main screen as it displayed the positions of human vessels. They were everywhere. Ships positioned near every planet, every asteroid, every possible escape route. The Zephyrian Empire's single reconnaissance vessel was surrounded by the largest fleet Veltar had ever seen. How many ships? Veltar asked. I count 347 vessels, Commander, and these are much larger than the ones we first detected. Weapon status? Crix checked his readings. Sir, each of their largest ships carries more firepower than our entire home fleet. Together, this human fleet could destroy every Zephyrian military installation in the galaxy. Captain Morrison's voice came through the communications again. Commander Veltar, I hope you can now see that we were not making empty threats. This fleet represents less than 10% of humanity's total military forces. Veltar's legs gave out, and he collapsed into his command chair. Less than 10%? If this massive fleet was just a small part of human military power, then the Zephyrian Empire was not just outmatched, it was completely helpless. Captain Morrison, Veltar said, surprised that his voice still worked. What do you want us to do? I want you to listen, Commander. I am going to tell you exactly what is going to happen next. Jake Morrison stood up on his bridge and activated the fleet-wide communication system. His words would be heard not just by the Zephyrian ship, but by every human vessel in the task force. Commander Veltar, your ship will return to Zephyrian space immediately. You will deliver a message to your high command. The message is simple. Humanity is claiming this entire sector of space as our territory. Any Zephyrian ships that enter human space will be destroyed without warning. But Captain, Veltar protested, this sector contains 12 star systems with planets that belong to the Empire. Belong to the Empire, Jake corrected. Those worlds are now under human protection. The species you enslaved on those planets are now free. Any attempt to reclaim those worlds will result in immediate military action against the Zephyrian homeworld itself. Dr. Grace Murphy was monitoring the psychological readings from the alien ship. Captain, their commander is approaching complete mental breakdown. We may need to ease the pressure slightly to keep him functional. Jake nodded. Commander Veltar, I understand this is difficult to accept, but you must understand that humanity is not your enemy by choice. We are your enemy because you chose to be conquerors and slavers. Our empire has always expanded by conquering weaker species, Veltar said. It is our way. Then you will need to find a new way, Jake replied. Because your old way ends today. The 12 species you conquered in this sector are now under human protection. Any other species you have enslaved throughout your empire can request human protection, and we will provide it. You would go to war with our entire empire to protect. Alien species? Veltar asked. Commander, we built this fleet specifically to go to war with your entire empire. We have been preparing for this conflict for 50 years. The only question is whether the war will be necessary or whether your empire will choose peace. Admiral A. Ross's voice joined the conversation from his flagship. Commander Veltar, this is Admiral Kevin Ross, commanding the Human Liberation Fleet. I want you to understand something very important. Humanity does not want to destroy the Zephyrian Empire. We want to change it. Change it how? Veltar asked. We want you to become a civilization that explores and learns instead of conquering and enslaving. We want you to be neighbors instead of enemies. But if you choose to remain conquerors, then we will stop you permanently. The weight of the decision facing the Zephyrian Empire settled on Commander Veltar's shoulders. His people could choose to change their entire way of life, or they could choose extinction at the hands of a species that had turned war into a science. Commander Veltar sat in his command chair, staring at the tactical display that showed hundreds of human ships surrounding his vessel. Each ship represented more firepower than the Zephyrian Empire could bring to bear in most battles. Together, they represented the end of everything his people had believed about their place in the galaxy. Commander, Communications Officer Yark said from his station, High Command is requesting an immediate report. They want to know why we have not returned from our patrol. Veltar looked at the young officer. How could he explain what had happened? How could he tell the proud leaders of the Zephyrian Empire that they had encountered a species so advanced that their entire military was obsolete? Tell High Command that we have encountered unexpected complications, Veltar said. Tell them we will provide a full report when we return. Sir, they are demanding more details. Before Veltar could answer, Captain Morrison's voice filled the bridge again. Commander Veltar, we know that your superiors are asking for information. Perhaps it would be helpful if they could see what you have seen. What do you mean? Veltar asked. We would like to invite a delegation from your high command to meet with us directly. Sometimes the truth is easier to accept when it comes from multiple sources. Science Officer Crix looked up from his instruments. Commander, they are opening a communication channel to our home system. They are bypassing our ship's communication array entirely. How is that possible? I do not know, sir. They seem to be communicating directly through hyperspace without using any equipment we can detect. On the Liberty, Dr. Nathan Cole was operating the quantum communication system that allowed instant contact across any distance. The technology was one of humanity's most closely guarded secrets, but they were willing to reveal it now to demonstrate their capabilities. Captain, Dr. Cole reported, I have established contact with the Zephyrian homeworld. Their high command is receiving our transmission. Excellent, Jake said. Put me through to their leadership. The main screen on the Liberty changed to show the interior of a large room on the Zephyrian homeworld. 5 elderly Zephyrians sat around a curved table, their skin showing the dark blue patterns that indicated the highest ranks of their society. These were the Supreme Council members who ruled the entire Zephyrian Empire. I am Supreme Commander Thexala, said the Zephyrian in the center of the group. Who dares to contact the High Command directly? Supreme Commander, Jake said, standing and giving a respectful bow. I am Captain Jake Morrison of the human species. I apologize for the unusual method of contact, but the situation requires immediate attention from your highest authorities. Human. Species? Thexala repeated. We have no records of any species called humans in this sector. That is correct, Supreme Commander. We have deliberately remained hidden while we studied your empire and prepared for this moment. Another council. Member Supreme Admiral Vexmore leaned forward. Prepared for what moment? The moment when we would need to stop your expansion into our territory. Jake replied calmly. The council members looked at each other with expressions of confusion and growing anger. Supreme Commander Thexala spoke again. Your territory? This entire sector belongs to the Zephyrian Empire. We have conquered 12 worlds here over the past century. You conquered 12 worlds that were inhabited by peaceful species who could not defend themselves, Jake corrected. Now those species are under human protection. Impossible, Supreme Admiral Vexmore said. No single species has the military power to challenge the Zephyrian Empire. Captain Morrison smiled slightly. Admiral Ross, would you be kind enough to show the Supreme Council our fleet positions? Admiral Kevin Ross's voice came through the communication system. Of course, Captain. Supreme Council of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Admiral Kevin Ross. I am transmitting the current positions of all human vessels in this sector. The tactical display in the council chamber lit up with hundreds of contact signatures. Each signature represented a human warship, and they were positioned throughout every system that the Zephyrian Empire considered their territory. Supreme Science Advisor Clixon studied the display with growing alarm. These readings, they cannot be accurate. No fleet this large has ever been assembled in galactic history. I assure you the readings are completely accurate, Admiral Ross replied. And this represents approximately 8% of humanity's total military force. The council chamber fell silent. 8%? If this massive fleet was less than 1/10 of human military power, then the Zephyrian Empire was not facing a rival. It was facing a force that could erase them from existence. On the Void Seeker, Commander Veltar was listening to the conversation between the human leaders and his own high command. He could see the shock and fear growing on the faces of the Supreme Council members as they realized the magnitude of what they were facing. Supreme Commander, Veltar said, speaking into the communication link, I can confirm that everything the humans have told you is true. I have seen their ships with my own eyes. Their technology is far beyond anything we possess. Supreme Commander Thexala turned her attention to Veltar. Commander, explain exactly what you have observed. Sir, I ordered a deep scan of what appeared to be a single human vessel. The scan revealed that the ship was far more advanced than our initial assessment. It also revealed a hidden fleet of hundreds of ships throughout this system. What is your tactical assessment? Supreme Admiral Vexmore asked. Veltar hesitated for a moment, then spoke the truth that would change everything. Sir, our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Their weapons can destroy our ships with single shots. Their fleet could attack our homeworld, and we would be powerless to stop them. The Supreme Council members exchanged glances that spoke of decades of military planning becoming worthless in a single moment. Captain Morrison spoke again. Supreme Council, humanity does not wish to destroy the Zephyrian Empire. We wish to change it. You have a choice to make. What choice? Supreme Commander Thexala asked. You can continue your policy of conquest and face the consequences. Or you can release all the species you have enslaved and become a peaceful civilization. And if we choose to fight? Supreme Admiral Vexmore demanded. Dr. Grace Murphy, monitoring the psychological profiles of the council members, gave Jake a slight nod. They were ready to hear the full truth. If you choose to fight, Jake said, his voice becoming cold and hard, then within 1 year there will be no Zephyrian Empire. Your military will be destroyed, your government will be dissolved, and your people will be placed under human administration until they learn to live peacefully with other species. You would commit genocide against our entire species? Supreme Science Advisor Clixon asked in horror. No, Jake replied. We would remove your ability to commit genocide against other species. Your people would be free to live, work, and build families. But you would never again be allowed to conquer or enslave others. Supreme Commander Thexala stood up from her chair. How long do we have to make this decision? You have 1 week, Admiral Ross said. 1 week to announce to all species in your empire that they are free. 1 week to withdraw all military forces from conquered worlds. 1 week to prove that the Zephyrian Empire can change. And if we need more time? Thexala asked. Supreme Commander, Jake said softly, you have had 100 years to stop enslaving innocent species. 1 week is generous. The communication ended, leaving the Supreme Council to face the most important decision in Zephyrian history. The days that followed the human ultimatum were the longest in Zephyrian history. On the homeworld, the Supreme Council met in constant session, trying to find a solution that would preserve their empire while avoiding total destruction. Arguments echoed through the halls of power as different council members proposed different responses to the human threat. Supreme Admiral Vexmore stood before a tactical display showing the positions of every Zephyrian military unit in the galaxy. We have over 10,000 ships in our fleet, he said to the assembled council. Surely we can mount some kind of defense against these humans. Supreme Science Advisor Clixon shook her head. Admiral, I have been analyzing the data from Commander Veltar's encounter. The human ships use technologies that are decades ahead of ours. Their single task force could destroy our entire military in open battle. Then we do not fight them in open battle, Vexmore replied. We use guerrilla tactics. We attack their supply lines. We make them fight the kind of war they are not prepared for. Supreme Commander Thexala listened to the debate with growing frustration. Admiral, the humans have been watching us for 50 years. They know our tactics better than we do. They have prepared for every possible response we might make. So you suggest we simply surrender our entire empire without a fight? Vexmore demanded. I suggest we consider what the humans are actually asking for, Thexala replied. They want us to free the species we have conquered. They want us to stop expanding through military force. They are not asking us to destroy ourselves. Supreme Cultural Advisor Nex Ara spoke for the first time in hours. Supreme Commander, you are asking us to abandon everything that makes us Zephyrian. We are a warrior culture. Conquest is our way of life. Without expansion, without new worlds to rule, what are we? The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. The Zephyrian Empire had been built on conquest for over 1,000 years. Their entire society was organized around the military domination of other species. Changing that would mean changing everything about who they were as a people. Meanwhile, in the space around the former Zephyrian colonies, human ships were already making contact with the enslaved populations. Captain Morrison had been given permission to begin liberation operations on worlds where the inhabitants requested immediate assistance. On the planet Karava, formerly known as Zephyrian Colony 12, Captain Lisa Parker commanded the human cruiser Boston as it entered orbit. The planet was home to the Caravans, a peaceful species that had been enslaved by the Zephyrians 30 years earlier. "Captain," reported Lieutenant Commander Danny Webb from the communications station, "we are receiving hundreds of transmissions from the planet's surface. The Caravans are asking if the liberation is real." "Put me through to their leadership," Lisa ordered. The main screen showed the face of an elderly Caravan named Elder Sooth. The Caravan's large eyes were filled with tears, and his voice shook with emotion as he spoke. "Human Captain," Elder Sooth said, "is it true? Are we really free from Zephyrian rule?" "Yes, Elder Sooth," Lisa replied gently. "The Zephyrian Empire no longer has any authority over your world. You and your people are free to govern yourselves. But what about their garrison? There are 5,000 Zephyrian soldiers on our world." "We are handling that situation now," Lisa said. "Major Rodriguez, report." Major Carlos Rodriguez appeared on the screen beside Captain Parker. He was the commander of the human ground forces that had been assigned to secure the planet. "Elder Sooth, we have surrounded all Zephyrian military installations on your world. The garrison commander has been given the same choice as his government: surrender peacefully or face the consequences." "Will there be fighting?" Elder Sooth asked with worry. "That depends on the Zephyrians," Rodriguez replied. "But I do not expect significant resistance. They know they cannot win." On Karava's main continent, Zephyrian garrison commander Bractel stood on the command balcony of his fortress and watched human ships landing in perfect formation around his position. Each ship disgorged soldiers wearing armor that looked more advanced than anything in the Zephyrian military. "Sir," said his aide, Lieutenant Jexitar, "the humans are requesting our surrender. They promise that all personnel will be transported safely back to Zephyrian space if we comply." Bractel looked at his tactical displays. His garrison had been designed to control a population of primitive aliens, not to fight against advanced human forces. His weapons were intended for crowd control and intimidation, not real warfare. "How many humans have landed?" he asked. "Approximately 2,000 soldiers, sir." "But their equipment—" Jextar paused, checking his readings. "Sir, their individual weapons appear to be more powerful than our vehicle-mounted cannons." Bractel made a decision that would be repeated on Zephyrian garrisons throughout the former empire. "Signal the humans. Tell them we will surrender unconditionally." Similar scenes were playing out on 11 other worlds as human forces liberated. Planet after planet. In every case, the Zephyrian garrison surrendered without firing a shot. Word spread quickly through the Zephyrian military that resistance was hopeless. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Supreme Commander Thexala received reports of the surrenders with growing despair. "Admiral Vexmore," she said, "it appears our garrison. Commanders are not willing to fight the humans." "Cowards," Vexmore muttered. "They should fight to the death rather than surrender." "Or perhaps they are wise enough to recognize reality," Thexala replied. "Admiral, we are receiving casualty reports from the liberation operations." "How many of our soldiers have been killed?" Vexmore asked. "None," Thexala said quietly. "None? How is that possible?" "Because every garrison commander chose to surrender rather than fight. The humans have not killed a single Zephyrian soldier." This information changed the mood in the council chamber. The humans were demonstrating that they could take whatever they wanted without loss of life on either side. They were not bloodthirsty, conquerors seeking revenge. They were simply more powerful than the Zephyrian Empire could comprehend. Supreme Science Advisor Clixon spoke into the silence. Supreme Commander, I have been analyzing the human technology demonstrations. Their ships, their weapons, their tactics. Everything suggests they could have destroyed us at any time over the past 50 years. Then why did they wait? Thexala asked. I believe they wanted to give us the chance to change on our own, Clixon replied. They only acted when it became clear that we would continue expanding and enslaving other species. You think they are moral? Supreme Cultural Advisor Nexara asked with confusion. I think they are exactly what they claim to be, Clixon said. A species that protects the weak from the strong. As the week deadline approached, reports continued to arrive from throughout the former empire. Human fleets had appeared in every system where Zephyrians had established colonies. Liberation was proceeding with mechanical efficiency. Enslaved species were being freed, Zephyrian military units were being disarmed and repatriated, and human administrators were helping former colonies establish their own governments. The Zephyrian Empire was being dismantled piece by piece, and there was nothing the Supreme Council could do to stop it. We have 2 days remaining, Supreme Commander Thexala announced to the Council. We must make our final decision. Do we accept the human terms, or do we choose to fight a war we cannot win? The vote, when it came, would determine the future of the Zephyrian people for generations to come. On the final day of the human ultimatum, Supreme Commander Thexala sat alone in her private chambers, staring out at the capital city of the Zephyrian homeworld. Millions of Zephyrians went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization hung in the balance of a decision that would be made in the next few hours. The door chimed, and Supreme Science Advisor Clixon entered the room. Her face showed the exhaustion of someone who had not slept in days. Supreme Commander, Clixon said, the final vote is scheduled to begin in 1 hour. Do you know how you will vote? Thexala turned from the window to face her old friend. They had served together for over 40 years, through 3 major wars and countless smaller conflicts. In all that time, they had never faced a decision like this one. Clixon, Thexala said quietly. What kind of leaders sacrifice their entire species for the sake of pride? The same kind who would sacrifice other species for the sake of conquest. Clixon replied. We have done terrible things in the name of empire building. Perhaps it is time to pay for those actions. But if we surrender, what becomes of our people? What becomes of our culture? We have been warriors for 1,000 years. How do we become something else? Clixon sat down across from her commander. Maybe we learn to be something better. In the council chambers, the 5 members of the Supreme Council took their seats around the ancient table where decisions had been made for centuries. The weight of history pressed down on them as they prepared to cast the most important vote in Zephyrian civilization. Supreme Admiral Vexmore was the first to speak. I maintain my position. We should fight. Even if we lose, at least we will. Die as warriors instead of surrendering like cowards. Admiral, said Supreme Cultural Advisor Nexara, I have been thinking about what you said regarding our warrior culture. Perhaps being a warrior means knowing when to fight and when to protect your people through other means. You speak of surrender as protection? Vexmore challenged. I speak of survival as wisdom, Nexara replied. Our people will live. Our children will have futures. That is worth more than pride. Supreme Economic Advisor Fluxit had remained silent through most of the week's debates, but now he spoke. I have been analyzing the economic implications of both choices. If we fight and lose, our civilization ends completely. If we accept the human terms, we can rebuild as a peaceful society. Rebuild as what? Vexmore demanded. As farmers, as merchants, as servants to other species? As explorers, Fluxit said, as scientists, as builders instead of destroyers. The humans have offered to share some of their technology with us if we prove we can be trusted. We could learn things that would advance our civilization by centuries. Supreme. Commander Thexala listened to the debate and made her decision. It is time to vote. All in favor of accepting the human terms and ending the Empire's policy of conquest? 4 hands rose around the table. Only Supreme Admiral Vexmore kept his hand down. All opposed? 1 hand rose. The motion passes, Thexala announced. The Zephyrian Empire officially accepts the human terms. Admiral Vexmore, will you honor this decision? Vexmore looked around the table at his fellow council members. His face showed the pain of a lifetime warrior who was being asked to abandon everything he had ever believed in. I will honor the decision of the council, he said finally. But I request permission to resign my position. I cannot be part of a government that surrenders without a fight. Your resignation is accepted with honor, Admiral, Thexala said gently. Your service to our people has been exemplary, even if we disagree on this final point. Within minutes, the decision was transmitted to Captain Morrison aboard the Liberty. Jake received the message while standing on his bridge, surrounded by the crew that had helped orchestrate the most significant military victory in human history without firing a single shot. Captain, Communications Officer Ryan Davis announced, we are receiving an official transmission from the Zephyrian Supreme Council. Put it through, Jake ordered. The main screen showed Supreme Commander Thexala sitting at the council table. Her expression was one of resignation mixed with relief. Captain Morrison, she said, I am Supreme Commander Thexala of the Zephyrian Empire. On behalf of the Supreme Council, I formally accept the terms you have presented. The Zephyrian Empire renounces all claims to conquered territories and agrees to end our policy of military expansion. Supreme Commander, Jake replied, I accept your decision on behalf of humanity. We are prepared to begin the transition process immediately. What will happen to our people on the liberated worlds? Thexala asked. All Zephyrian civilians who wish to return to your home world will be transported safely. Any who wish to remain on the liberated worlds and live peacefully alongside the native populations will be welcome to do so. And our military personnel? They will be repatriated to Zephyrian space. We have no interest in punishing soldiers who were following orders. However, any individuals responsible for war crimes against enslaved populations will face trial. Thexala nodded. That is fair. Captain Morrison, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you wait 50 years to act? You could have stopped our expansion decades ago. Jake considered the question carefully. Supreme Commander, humanity believes that every species has the right to choose its own path. We hoped that the Zephyrian Empire would eventually choose to change on its own. We only acted when it became clear that you would continue enslaving innocent species. And if we had chosen to fight instead of surrender, then your empire would have ended anyway, but with much greater loss of life. We are glad you chose wisdom over pride. Dr. Grace Murphy, who had been monitoring the psychological profiles of the Zephyrian leadership throughout the crisis, approached Jake's command chair. "Captain," she said quietly, "I recommend we offer them a demonstration of good faith, something to show that we meant what we said about helping them become a peaceful civilization." Jake nodded. "Supreme Commander Thexala, humanity would like to make an offer. We are prepared to share certain technologies with your people. Medical advances, agricultural improvements, clean energy systems, technologies that can improve life for your citizens without military applications." The surprise on Thexala's face was obvious. "You would share your technology with us? After we threatened to attack you? Supreme Commander, you did not threaten us. You scanned our ship to determine if you could conquer us. When you learned that you could not, you made the wise choice to seek peace instead of war. That shows character." 1 year later, Commander Veltar stood on the bridge of a new ship, not a warship, but a scientific research vessel. The Zephyrian Empire had been transformed into the Zephyrian Republic, a democratic government focused on exploration and research instead of conquest. Veltar's ship was part of a joint human-Zephyrian expedition to explore previously unknown regions of space. The mission was to find new worlds suitable for colonization, not conquest, but peaceful settlement by volunteers from both species. "Commander," Science Officer Crix reported from his station, "I am detecting an unusual energy, signature from the third planet in this system." "What kind of signature?" Veltar asked. "It appears to be artificial, sir. Possibly the remains of an ancient civilization." Veltar smiled. A year ago, such a discovery would have meant planning an invasion to claim whatever resources the planet might contain. Now it meant the excitement of archaeological discovery and the possibility of learning something new about the galaxy's history. "Set course for the planet," Veltar ordered. "Let us see what secrets it holds." As his ship moved toward the mysterious world, Veltar reflected on how much had changed since that fateful day when he had ordered a simple scan of a human battleship. That scan had led to the end of an empire, but it had also led to the beginning of something better. The Zephyrians had learned that true strength came not from conquering others, but from understanding them. And perhaps most importantly, they had learned that the strongest species in the galaxy was also the most willing to show mercy to those who chose wisdom over war.